Give us my chol, give us my chol, give us my chol, give a smile. Give us my chol, give us my chol, be the reason someone smiles. Give us my chol, give us my chol, give us my chol, give a smile. Give us my chol, give us my chol, be the reason someone smiles. Give us my chol, give a smile. Give us my chol, give us my chol, be the reason someone smile. Give us my chol, give us my chol, give us my chol, give a smile. Give us my chol, give us my chol, be the reason someone smiles. Siva, gedola, liot, liot, besimcha. Siva, gedola, liot, liot, besimcha. Siva, gedola, liot, liot, besimcha. Siva, gedola.
How should you respond when your children disappoint you religiously? Well, just think about all of the beautiful synagogues and Chabad houses, how they welcome even the most secular of Jews. When they show up with their cars on the Sabbath, the rabbi doesn't say, "Get out of my synagogue, you degenerate, disgusting Jew." He embraces the person. He makes him feel at home and comfortable. Why? Not because he doesn't care about Shabbat, because he knows that love and attachment is what encourages and motivates and inspires people to come closer to Judaism. So just because someone is your child, should he be treated differently than a stranger in the synagogue?
Breakfast with Elli.
Mode ani lefanecha melech chai vekayam shechezarta bi nishmati bechemla rabba emunatecha.
Good morning, and welcome to Breakfast with Elli. It is Wednesday, 14th day of June, 25th day of Sivan, year 5783, year of Hakel. Torah portion is Shalach, Hayom Yom Revi stop supporting the county for Buckport stop supporting the court Aliyah. Good morning, how are you? Yeah, I fell a little bit behind this morning. I almost didn't get here in time. I know, but I'm here and we're ready to go. And first of all, you should know that the surgery went really, really well. You can still daven for Rabbi Moshe Meir HaKohen Ben Chana for his complete recovery from his triple bypass. And also, we talked yesterday about the young boy, Rafael Chaim Meir Ben Simachasya. He is going to have home care now. They've done all they can for him in the hospital. So please, if you are able to help out, I'm going to put that front and center. You can see the web address over there. It is raised.com/Raphael, PH, Raphael Chaim Meir, Mayer. All right. We're going to jump right back into the start. Okay. Yeah, I'm having an issue with Clubhouse and my microphone. I don't know what that's all about. Yeah, not sure. Let's see if I can bump the audio quality a little bit here. High audio quality. All right, let's see if that helps at all. I know I'm being told that I have a problem, and I don't know exactly what it is. All right, we'll figure it out. Okay, so yes, home care for the young man. So if you can help out, please do. All right, men and boys, please take your front two tzitzis. Let's make a bracha.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al mitzvat tzitzit.
All right. Everyone together, Al Divrei Torah.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al divrei Torah.
Abel.
הריני מקבל עלי מצוות עשה של ואהבת לרעך כמוך. I take upon myself every single day to love my fellow friend in a very special way.
Torah Tziva.
היי תורה ציווה לנו משה מורשה קהילת יעקב. תורה ציווה לנו משה מורשה קהילת יעקב.
Big mitzvah to stop what you're doing and feed your animal when they're hungry. All right, I got it. There you go. Can't juggle the tzedakah box and the cat food. But that's okay. All right. Time to give tzedakah. Here we go. Are you ready?
I put it in the pushki, the tzedakah box. I put it in the pushki, the tzedakah box. I put it in the pushki for someone else to keep. Yeah, I put it in the pushki, the tzedakah box. I put it in the pushki, the tzedakah box. I put it in the pushki for someone else in need.
All right, tzedakah has been given. All right, and that takes us to the reading of the Shema. Let us say the Shema. Take your right hand and place it over your eyes.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
All right, fantastic. Let me just move this over here because I didn't post that apparently. There we go. All right. Okay, much better. Okay, now we are going to have breakfast. All right, coffee and yogurt. Tomorrow I go to Brooklyn, appointment with the cardiologist, our quarterly checkup, and I'll go to bingo. I know, it's so exciting. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehakol nהיה bidvaroi.
Coffee, blessed coffee. God bless you for being a friend. When the whole world turns on me, it's only you on which I can depend. I want to taste you in the morning and a few times throughout the day. Yes, a cup or two in the evening too. For me, it's the only way.
The lotus cookie yogurt. I know. All right, today in Jewish. Today being Wednesday, 3 of the 10 martyrs. You know, in the Yom Kippur service, we talk about the 10 martyrs. Well, 3 of them were killed on this day. Among the millions of Jews cruelly killed by the Romans were the 10 martyrs, all great sages, leaders of Israel, memorialized in a special prayer recited on Yom Kippur. 3 of them, Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, Rabbi Ishmael ben Elisha, and Rabbi Hanina Sagan HaKohanim, were killed today on the 25th day of Sivan. A sad day indeed. Egyptian representatives appeared in the 4th century in the court of Alexander the Great, demanding that the Jews pay restitution for all the Egyptian gold and silver they took along with them during the Exodus. Gavia, the son of Pesisa, a simple but wise Jew, requested the sages' permission to present a defense on behalf of the Jews. Gavia asked the Egyptians for evidence that Jews absconded with their wealth. The crime is clearly according to your Torah, the Egyptians gleefully responded. Well, in that case, Gavia said, the Torah, excuse me, Torah also says that 600,000 Jews were unjustly enslaved by the Egyptians for many, many years. So, let us first calculate how much you owe us. The Egyptians asked for 3 days to prepare a response. When they were unable to do so, they fled on the following day and never returned. In times of the Talmudic times, the day when the Egyptians fled was celebrated as a mini holiday. I know. It's a great tale. I love it so much. All right. Let us now go to Hayom Yom for today, the 25th day of Sivan. It's coming.
It's an interesting thing. If you've ever shared something that's weighing on you, a challenge that you're dealing with another person, sometimes after you share, you feel relieved, you feel somewhat comforted, somewhat strengthened by the fact that you've shared it with somebody else. And sometimes, on the contrary, sometimes you feel like, why did I even do that? Why did I share something so personal with somebody else? And instead of giving you comfort, it just makes you more on edge or more agitated, like, oh, that was a bad idea. How do you know if it's a good idea to share something with somebody else? Today's Hayom Yom. The pasuk in Mishlei says, "Daiga belev ish yaschena." Daiga belev ish. If there is a worry on your heart, if something is weighing on your heart, yaschena. The pasuk's word, the words of King Solomon, the word that King Solomon uses is yaschena, and yaschena can mean two things. One interpretation is, forget about it. If something's really bothering you, you know what? Just stop thinking about it. And if you stop thinking about it, it won't bother you so much. That's one interpretation. And that's actually sometimes a good solution. Sometimes it works. Just stop thinking about the problem. It won't bother you so much. But that doesn't always solve the problem. The second interpretation of yaschena is yasichena. Talk it over. Talk it over with somebody else. But says the Tzemach Tzedek, when you decide that you want to divulge, you want to share something very personal with acherim, with another person, you have to make sure that that other person is other in the material sense of the word. It's another body, it's another person who can help you perhaps share some perspective, but there has to be a soul connection there, to the degree that you feel that this person is one with you. So if you share information and you feel like, oh, I just let that loose, I just talked to somebody else, a different person, that's not really, that bond isn't really there, I don't feel this unity with that person, then chances are you will regret it. If you're fortunate enough to have a friend that you can confide with, and a friend that will empathize with you, so it's another person from a body perspective, but from a soul perspective, you are one. Now that's somebody that it's very helpful to share your problems with, and together this friend will provide comfort, and you'll be able to overcome your challenge.
All right. That works for me. Hayom Yom, written by the Lubavitcher Rebbe at the request of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe. All right. And now, a word from our sponsors.
And now, a word from our sponsors. PestProRidol.com.
PestProRidol.com. Trusted by the best to keep away the pests. We are offering COVID-19 disinfection services. Mention this ad and get 1 month free service. Visit us at PestProRidol.com.
Tarzane Group. Micro, miniature, and small orchids. Go to tarzanegroup.com or call Tomas at 305-440-0565. That's 305-440-0565. And order today. Visit Tomas and Yair at tarzanegroup.com. Micro, miniature, and small orchids. Beautiful in your home. Go to the website and read Tomas's orchid blog. And by Dina D Design. DinaDDesign@gmail.com. Fine artwork, custom made to your specifications, logos, wall hangings, Judaica, and you can even have something for your child's room. Dina D Designs. Go to her Facebook or Instagram or call or text. Thank you very much to our sponsors. If you'd like to become a sponsor, please go right up here to where it says patreon.com/theactorsrabbi, and you can contribute even only $1 a month if you'd like, but that'll help us bring this broadcast to you on a daily basis and cover our expenses. Be sure to thank your sponsors when shopping and mention Breakfast with Elli when you're shopping there. There might be discounts. Thanks for watching.
Sivan lanu Moshe. Torah, 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 Sivan lanu Moshe.
All right, if you'd like to contribute, go to patreon.com/theactorsrabbi or breakfastwithelli.live/tipjar and help us out by sponsoring Torah in your neck of the woods, which is all over the world. It's pretty impressive and cool that this is happening. All right. We are studying the overview to Parshas Shlach. And we understand that the spies' mistake was to carry out the mandate at Sinai, to bring heaven to earth and earth to heaven. They did not realize the advantage of entering the material world, where Hashem's essence can be found through fulfilling his mitzvahs on the physical plane. It was precisely this misconception that had to be proven wrong once and for all before entry into the land. It's very easy when we consider the wide range of Torah's demands on our life and the effort we have to expend to fulfill them properly, to fall into the trap of thinking that Hashem is asking too much of us. After all, Torah seeks to govern every aspect of our life in all its myriad details. Even learning Torah itself per se seems impossible, for its measure is longer than the earth and it's wider than the sea. On top of this, Torah requires us to vanquish our inborn animal instincts and resist the pervasive pull of society and its norms. How can the faint voice of the few that are faithful to Hashem be heard over the din of those who ignore him? Strong arguments, to be sure, but upon even momentary reflection, they crumble. For even a human dispatcher, if he has any sense, won't give an emissary a charge too difficult for him to accomplish. And while a human dispatcher can err in the estimation of an emissary's capabilities, Hashem knows us better than we know ourselves. As our Creator, he's fully aware of both our strengths and our weaknesses, and it's therefore inconceivable that he could or would assign us to a task that we can't fulfill. By failing in their mission, the spies ironically succeeded in a much more profound way. Their failure allowed this very value that they disregarded, Hashem's purpose of making the world into his home, to be accomplished more fully than their success ever could have. The ultimate way of making Hashem's world into making the world into Hashem's home is by revealing our own divine natures and thereby making Hashem's perspective, goals, and desires our goals, perspective, goals, and desires. When we do this, we follow Hashem's will not only because we're told to, but because our own minds and hearts impel us to. The problem is, remaking ourselves over in this way is a process of self-refinement, which is long, hard work. It's much simpler and quicker to submit carte blanche to Hashem's will than to gradually refine our intellect and emotions by training them constantly to see through the world's materiality. But this is exactly what the spy sin enabled us to do, in a straightforward manner. First of all, the spies succeeded in exciting the Jewish people about entering the land of Israel. Thanks to them, people heard from eyewitnesses that it was a land flowing with milk and honey. They didn't have to take Hashem's promise on mere faith. Once they were shaken from the momentary doubt, they were swept up with the desire to enter the land. The children carried this knowledge of the land's virtues when they joyfully entered it with Yeshua. The spies that Yeshua sent were only for strategic purposes, since the people didn't need another report of the land's beauty and beneficial properties. Secondly, the very fact that the spies, as Jewish leaders, walked through the land prepared it spiritually for the eventual entrance of the people as a whole. The mission of the Meraglim had the immediate effect of beginning the conquest of the land and paving the way for the actual conquest. And thirdly, the spies in their generation, had they not sinned, the people would have indeed entered the land headed by Moshe and would have been led to a miraculous victory by Hashem's cloud of glory and pillar of fire. But then, the victory and the conquest would have been God's alone rather than the people's, aided by his constant support. Because of the sin of the Meraglim, the land now had to be won by military prowess. But the ensuing victory would be the result of the people's efforts. And because they would fight for it, they would value it more than they would had they received it only as Hashem's gift. And finally, the spy's error taught us that the invaluable lesson that we can all indeed fulfill Hashem's mission, and we should never make the mistake of thinking that we don't measure up to his calling. So in this light, it was crucial that the spies should sin. It was the only way that the objective of making the world into Hashem's home could be accomplished. The only way the historical process could proceed in exactly the best way possible. The real fault was not in what they did, but in the fact that they only focused on one side of the coin. Perhaps they can be forgiven for this. It was the first time a generation was called out to live in this paradox of yearning for heaven while toiling on earth, of acknowledging the importance of the self while abrogating it in raw obedience. As our sages say, kolas koshas, all beginnings are difficult. In any case, the lesson we must learn from the spies is the importance of both ardently aspiring to the spiritual life and humbly submitting to Hashem's desire to make this world into Hashem's home and attaining the proper balance between them. Both acting as a self-interested agent and operating on blind obedience have their drawbacks. Blind obedience has its place as the bedrock of our commitment to Hashem, but only a life based solely on that doesn't involve the entire person. Acting in our own interests allows Hashem's perspective to permeate our whole being, but doing so exposes the risk of letting our egos lead us astray. No, the goal is to remain aware of our supra-rational and unconditional commitment to Hashem, even while making His reality our own. And when we undertake the quest to manifest our divine dimension as God's mandate rather than an exercise in furthering our self-interests, that's when our mission is guaranteed to succeed. To have always a positive outlook. It is absolutely positively amazing. All right, in the fourth aliyah, right? Yep. The details of the punishment are now revealed. The Bnei Yisrael will wander in the desert for 40 years. And during that time, all males over the age of 20, with the exception of Yeshua and Kalev, will perish. The next generation would enter the promised land. The 10 scouts who brought back the frightful report, they died immediately. When the Jews were informed of Hashem's decision, they lamented and grieved. A group of people awoke the next day and decided to go it alone and enter the land of Israel by themselves. This, despite Moshe's warning that their plan would not succeed if it wasn't sanctioned by Hashem. And the group is cut down and massacred by the Amalekites and the Canaanites. The Israelites are now told upon entering Israel, an individual who pledges to bring a korban, a sacrifice, must also bring an accompaniment consisting of a wine libation and a flour offering mixed with olive oil. I know. Heady stuff, right? Here's Shnayim Yomi.
Parashat Shalach, Aliyah Rebi'i. Boreolam comes and tells Moshe and Aharon in the following. He says, until when is this assembly, this evil assembly? They're coming now and they're complaining about me? Until when are they going to complain? I heard their complaints. Tell them, says Boreolam swears, whatever they said, that's what I'm going to do to them. In this desert, they wanted to die, they're going to piss away. And those children that they were worried about, those children are going to go into the land. He says, They're going to go now and they're going to graze the desert. They're going to travel the desert 40 years. For every day that those Ben Aglim, those spies, went in to spy the land, for every day there's going to be a year of ramifications. Pasuk says that the people that actually went in the spies, they all passed away. How did they pass away? The rights, that their tongues stretched into their stomachs, and there were worms going into their intestines, and that was the way that they passed away. However, Yoshua ben Nun Kaleb ben Yefuneh, they lived. They lived. Minan Hashim Ayim. Vaydaber Moshe Tavim Ha'eleh Kol Bnei Yisrael. Vaytabelu Aham Me'od. Moshe Rabbeinu comes and reveals this news to Bnei Yisrael, and they start mourning. They got up in the morning, and they would go to the top of the mountain, and they said, "Please, let us go. We're going to go into it. We're going into the Eretz Yisrael. We want to go to that land. We sin Borei Olam." Moshe says, "What are you doing? Why are you going against Borei Olam? You're not going to succeed. Don't go. Hashem is not with you." Well, they go up anyway. And Amalek was there, Canaan was there. And unfortunately, many of the Jews passed away. They were killed by the Goyim. The parasha continues. And it says, "Vaydiber Elai Moshe Lemor, tell Bnei Yisrael, when they're going to come to the land where they're going to reside, that I'm going to give them, they should make korbanot. There is a olah or a neder made based on a vow or a promise, or for the holidays. It says, "V'ikriva korbanot Adonai mincha solet isaron balu brevitayin." With any korban that a person brings, he has to bring a mincha. Mincha is a fine wheat flour. He has to bring wine as well to libate the altar, the mizbeach. And v'ayin lanetzach shel shitayin, it's a third of vehin, which is a measurement. And with that, it'll be reach nichoch laHashem. Borei Olam will accept such an offering. Inside on the parasha, the punishment of the nation was one day of sin for a year of punishment. And the question is, what's the calculation? And what's the lesson? It's very simple. When a person comes and hurts somebody, you insult somebody, you disparage, denigrate someone, you think that it ends over there. You think that the person feels bad, he gets upset, and that's it, the action's over. Game over. But it's not true. Because that person takes that pain and he brings it home. And the way he talks to his wife when he's coming and suffering with pain affects the wife. She talks to the kids and it affects the kids. Kid goes to school the next day and it affects the friends. And your act permeated. So yes, they sinned one day, but it didn't end there. It had ramifications unendingly. And therefore, Borei Olam says, you think your sin was only worth one day? Your sin did much more than that. And therefore, the effect of that day, says Borei Olam, was a 1 year of suffering. B'ezrat Hashem, if that's the way it is with Averot, imagine how great it is with mitzvot. You do one mitzvah, and that compliment to that person, encouraging word, that tzedakah, we don't know how far it takes us, and we don't know how much sachar we will reap. B'ezrat Hashem in the future. Rabbi Eliezer Zaytuni, have a wonderful day.
All right. Here is Reb Zusha.
My dear friends, let's give some tzedakah together. Hakel, Achdus, unity. You know, I had a very interesting conversation this morning, literally like a half hour ago. Visiting a place, let's just call it a group home, a particular group home. And I meet a young man over there and he tells me, it feels so good to be back. And I ask him, what do you mean? Why is it feeling so good to be back in this particular group home? You had your own place. You had your own life. You had your quote-unquote freedom. There was nobody there to check up on you. Over here, you have to sign in at night. You have to give a report where you are going during the day. You have to eat in a certain time, things are regulated. Why does it feel so good to be back here? And he tells me, I couldn't cope with that freedom. I just couldn't. Background that I come from, number of years prison life, it just didn't do it for me. And I'm using his words. Thinking about that, I realized, I think, the issue of the Meraglim. We started talking yesterday about the spies that came back from the mission that Moshe Rabbeinu sent them to check out the land of Israel, and they came back with an extremely discouraging negative report. Friends, they said to the brethren, the Jewish people in the desert, we will not be able to hack it. We will not be able to get there. We will not be able to conquer this land. And they're using two different statements. I mean, two frightening statements. It says, Ki chazakum mimenu. It's way beyond the scope of God's capabilities, so to say. And then he also says, Vayinu b'neim kechagovim. We saw those giants and we looked to them like little ants. What they're saying here is, I think, we as people who are institutionalized, we cannot cope with responsibilities. We cannot cope with making decisions. We cannot face a new type of a lifestyle. They were in Egypt for 200 years. Difficult, slavery, beaten. Their life was worthless. But in a certain extent, they didn't have to make decisions. They were told what to do, how to do, when to do. They got accustomed to that. That became their comfort zone. They went out of Egypt, they came into the desert. Once again, they don't have to make decisions. They don't have to take really responsibility. Their food is prepared, their drink is prepared, their clothing is cleaned and prepared. The housing is taken care of. Obviously, their spiritual needs, they're being tutored, they're being taught by Moshe Rabbeinu. A new comfort zone. Where the previous comfort zone was one in pain, this new comfort zone is one of bliss. But it is a prison mentality. It's a slave mentality. Going into Eretz Yisrael, they are going to have to start making decisions. The manna will not fall from heaven. The water will not come from the well of Miriam, which travels to their convenience. They're going to have to fend for themselves. They're going to have to plant. They're going to have to harvest. They're going to have to work. They're going to have to get out of their comfort zone. So this young man tells me this morning, couldn't face it. So they had good intentions, going back to the Meraglim. They wanted to live in this protected, shielded, spiritual environment. Good intentions, but that's not the purpose. God didn't create us here to come and have an easy life. Adam la'amal yivaled. We were born to toil. What kind of toil? Reveal godliness in this world. Yes, to get manna from heaven, we know it's godly. But when you have the fruit coming from the earth, from the trees, etc., and recognize that it is coming from God, saying the blessing, Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, borei pri ha'etz, you are the creator of the fruit of the tree. In other words, revealing the godly. That takes effort. And that takes responsibility. This, they couldn't. So their intentions were good. The timing was wrong. This is going to be the time of Mashiach. Until then, we got to work hard to make it happen.
There you go. All right, here's our Parsha report for
Hello there, people, and welcome to the Week in Review. Let's take a look at the IntelliCompute Parsha Cam. This week, Moses sends out spies to scout out Israel before the Jews move in. But these spies aren't the fearless kind you read about. No, these spies see giant grapes and other giant produce, get scared out of their wits, come back and incite fear in the Jewish people, and end up getting Moses really, really mad. I recently had the opportunity to speak to one of them, and by one of them, I mean one of the grapes. Roy? Giant grape. My first question is, how did you feel when the Jewish spies came in, saw you guys, and said, hey, if the grapes here are this big, then the people must be ginormous? Did that make you feel upset? Proud? Monstrous? What was that like? Tell us a little bit about that. Fascinating. Now let me jump to a different topic, and we'll come back to the spies in a minute. What are your personal goals? Do you see yourself as a giant raisin, perhaps a bottle of wine? I see. Okay, back to the spies. Why do you think they were so afraid of you? What is it about a giant grape that would make a Jewish spy say, "Ah, giant grape!" Okay, one last question. Are you related to Alexander the Grape? Okay, Mr. Grape, or Giant, if I may. Can I call you Giant? It's been a pleasure, and we really thank you for coming out here. Well, that's almost it for now. But first, let's go to Rabbi Itchik Gaduzzi in the Parsha Report Parsha Copter, who will give us a quick overview, or overview, of the Torah portion, as he sees it from a bazillion miles above. Rabbi?
Thank you, Jono. Well, from what I can make out from up here, is that after experiencing miracles in Egypt and receiving the Torah on Mount Sinai, the Jews are afraid to settle in Israel and get back into real life. And from a bazillion miles above, it looks like the giant grapes reminded them of the tremendous responsibilities that real life brings. That's why Moses was so upset, because he knew that the whole point of the Torah is to bring its teachings into real life and to make the real world a better, holier place. For the Week in Review, I'm Rabbi Itchik Gaduzzi, and I think I just lost my shoe.
Thank you, Rabbi. Well, folks, it's time to sign off for now. I'm Jonathan Weinsteinstein, and this has been the Week in Review.
All right. Yes. Now we have time for Rabbi Wilhelm.
Rabbi Wilhelm, I was thinking it might be a good idea to do the video, the Torah karaoke video, before your medication kicks in, before you're normal.
Hello, Bensy. You're not embarrassed to say that in public?
No.
What's so embarrassing? You're not a fellow Yid.
Oh, come on, you're not embarrassed.
Anyways, so this week's Parsha is Parsha Shlach. I actually got a Dvar Torah from somebody who, by mistake, and he realized he made a mistake, called the name of the Parsha by Yishlach, but it's Shlach. What lessons, and quick, last week when we recorded the video with the student from Japan, after it was done, the guy said, "Hey, Rabbi, it's 15 minutes. So I got to keep it short and like medication. You take one pill, two pills.
That's because you're speaking to someone in Japan, it's long distance.
Good joke. Anyways, listen to this. So, there's a riddle that people in the Chadarim, they ask. Let's see if you can figure this out. Where in the Torah did the Torah not say emes?
The whole thing's emes. What do you mean?
The whole Torah is emes.
Mm-hmm.
So where in the Torah did it not say emes? It's a riddle in this week's Parsha. Something that you say every single day in davening.
Okay. You got me?
I got you?
Yeah.
Okay, send in a check, $18. The answer is, we say every day in Kriya Shema, the third Parsha, the Parsha of Tzitzis,
in the Torah, and we finish off Ani Hashem Elokeichem Emes. In the Torah, it doesn't say Emes. The last three words in the Torah, and the last three words in this week's parsha is the parsha of Spitzer. It says Ani Hashem Elokeichem. So that's a riddle. Where in the Torah does it not say Emes? Well, the Chassam Sofer says something very interesting. The Chassam Sofer says, what's the next parsha? The parsha of Korach. When you take the two first words in the parsha, Vayikach Korach, and you do the gematria plus the letters, it's Bigematria Emes. It's Bigematria Emes. And he actually says that that is another source that you have to say, Hashem Elokeichem Emes. You know, when you learn Hilchas Krishma, it's actually very fascinating, the discussion. Why do we, the parsha of Tzitzis finishes by Hashem Elokeichem. Why do we even have to connect it to Emes? Because of a pasuk says Hashem Elokeichem Emes. What's okay? So you learn halacha now. You learn halacha, and then should the chazan say it? The private person. There's a lot of discussion. What's the Hashem? You're not allowed to be mafsik between Hashem Elokeichem Emes. The parsha is over really by Hashem Elokeichem. Okay, so all those who are heavy into halacha, that's a good topic to discuss. All right. So, actually in this week's parsha, because it's the week before Gimel Tammuz, there's also a lesson that you could learn of what a true leader is. You know, people are so impressed, I don't know if that's the right word, of Moshe Rabbeinu. He keeps on fighting on behalf of the Yidden. By the Maisa Egel, he begs the Ebish to please forgive them. Over here, by the Maisa Meragelim, please forgive them. And Moshe Rabbeinu whipped out every trick in the book. Va'ato Yigdal no koyach Hashem. So the letter Yud from Yigdal is big. So the Mefarshim say, why is it big? If the Abisha says, hey, there's Yud, there's 10 times, enough is enough. 10 times the Yidden tested me, enough. So Moshe Rabbeinu says, yeah, you're worried about the 10? How about let's whip out Avram Avinu. Avram Avinu had Asar in this Yonis, and he came out strong. So don't, Moshe Rabbeinu was really, really fighting on our behalf. And that's what a real leader, that's what a real Yiddish leader has to do, always fight on behalf of Klal Yisrael. So I just want to finish off with a fascinating story, because we're trying to keep it condensed. When Reb Meir Shapiro became the Rav of Lublin, so it was a big to-do, so they asked him, one of the smart Alex in the community asked him, says, Rebbe, Emet Hashem, Mashiach is going to come, and there will be Tchias HaMesim. And all the big former Rebbes, Rabbanim of the city, will also come. Who's going to be the Rav then? Who's going to really be the Rav of Lublin when all the big Rabbanim come? So Meir Shapiro answered, what are you talking about? When the former Rabbanim wake up at Tchias HaMesim, they're going to wake up together with their communities. So every Rav will be the leader of their community. Brilliant answer. So the smart aleck continues and says, Rebbe, but what if there will be a generation where the Rav will wake up, but the community maybe didn't deserve it, and they won't wake up for Tchias HaMesim? So who's going to be the Rav? You or them? What would you answer, Mayor? What's your name? What would you answer? A Geschmack answer. So Meir Shapiro said, a Rav that doesn't make sure that his community wakes up for Tchias HaMesim, don't you dare call him a Rav.
Oh, beautiful.
Huh? So in other words, a true leader is one who fights for his community and not only fights on their behalf and raises them to a situation, even though this week's parsha we talk about the Deira Midbar, where the Mishnah says in Sanhedrin terrible things, that they might not be at Elam Chelik, whatever. But Moshe Rabbeinu fights for everybody. And a true leader not only fights for everybody, shares with them, and it teaches them, sheds the light, how they should always stay above everything and only have good.
Good Shabbos.
Good Shabbos.
Beautiful, huh? Beautiful stuff. All right, we have one more for you today. The Chief Rabbi.
It is possible for a person to be an expert in Torah law without practicing any of it. This could be, for example, an academic who has studied the Torah and has produced a thesis on the Torah as a historic document as opposed to being a guide for life. Or perhaps you could have, for example, somebody who has been schooled in the ways of Torah and who has grown up within a Torah environment but doesn't anymore want to translate their knowledge into action. It is with this in mind that in the third paragraph of the Shema, which is presented to us in Parshat Shlach Lecha, that Hashem tells us, "Uzachartem et kol mitzvot Hashem va'asitem otam," and you shall remember all the mitzvot of Hashem, and you must perform them. What we remember needs to be translated into action. And then the Shema continues to reinforce this message, "Leman tizkuru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai," so that you will remember and translate that memory into the performance of my commandments, v'yitem kedoshim le'elokechem, so that you shall become holy before your God. If you indeed lead a life which is filled with shmirat mitzvot, the performance of the commandments, you will have a sacred existence. V'yitem kedoshim. You'll have meaning in life. You'll have joy in life. You'll have a deep sense of fulfillment. You will have a spiritual existence. In Parshat Shlach Lecha, we are told the saga of the Meraglim, of the spies. They ignored the word of Hashem, who had promised them that they were going to a glorious, blessed land. They wanted to decide for themselves. They wanted to reach conclusions in life without regard to what they knew had been the word of Hashem, and the result was a great tragedy for our people. So then the Shema, at the end of the Parsha, comes to tell us that when we are aware of the expectations of Hashem and we choose to translate them into meaningful practice, the result will be that we'll be all the better for it. Our lives will be enhanced, and we will be enormously blessed. So therefore, whatever we know is there to be translated into action and to give us lives of incredible spirituality, wonderful meaning, and true happiness. Shabbat Shalom.
All right, and that takes us to Tehillim. Right? We are we are saying for Eliana Necha Basracho and for sorry about that. And for Rafael Chaim Meir Bas Simchasia. Let's keep them in mind, as well as anyone else who needs a healing, as we say chapter 122 together.
Shamala Yisrael, Bisamachti, Vayimni, Vaysalino, Yinay, Oyim and I saw you, Ralayinu, Bishara, Yerushalayim, Yerushalayim, Hallelujah, Ki Shechura La Yachdav, Sheshamul Shatim Shiftaya, Eidus Israel, Lehoyda Yisrael, Alayna, Kishama Yashavu Chizais Mishvat, Kisais Levais David, Shalu Shalayim, Yerushalayim, Yishrayu, I have a year, Yishalayim, Chayilei Shava, the Ayman Yisrael, Lema Anachai, Vijaya, Yadabrona, Shalayim, Lema Anayizalina, Yelayhenu, Avav Shata, Yula, Lema Anayizalay Shem, Elayhenu, Avav Shata, Yula,
Tanya for today, the 25th day of Sivan.
Tanya thoughts for the 25th of Sivan. Infinity is amazing, bedazzling, inspiring. I don't know what it is because it's infinite. I can't define it. Hashem, in his desire to be one with us, parcels out that infinity into bite-sized, manageable pieces, the spheroids, which funnel Hashem to us in manageable slices. It's the same infinity of Hashem, simply expressed in nuggets we can deal with.
Let's talk Tanya for the 25th of Sivan. Yesterday, we spoke about Mimali Kalalman, the light of God, which contracts itself in order to be able to create all the worlds and the many different finite creations in all the worlds. What is the process of this contraction? So in today's Tanya, the Alter Rebbe explains everything begins with God's breath. We spoke about that the source of this world is the Asara Mamoris, the 10 utterances. The fact that we are able to speak and say words, the source of that is the breath that we exhale while we are speaking. The breath of God, which is the source of the words, is directly sourced in God's attributes, his kindness, his severity, etc. And because God's attributes are infinite, God's breath is also infinite. So if the world were to have been created directly from God's breath, there would have been two results. Number one, there would have been an infinite amount of worlds. And number two, every single world qualitatively also would have been infinite. We would not have had our world, which is a finite world, because the worlds would also, all of them, all the infinite worlds would be infinite also qualitatively. So therefore, the first contraction that has to happen is we have to have the 10 utterances. The 10 utterances, they take God's breath and they very clearly delineate them. Yehi Or, let there be light. Yehi Rakia, let there be heavens. We're taking an infinite light, which is the breath of God, and we are confining it and contracting it and limiting it to a very specific and certain creation. Now, this works for the greater, grander creation, such as the heavens, such as the seas, such as the general creation of various species. And that's why there are only 10 utterances. The energy which is within these 10 utterances is still way too intense for the average run-of-the-mill everyday creation. For that, there's another process which we touched upon briefly in the first chapter of Shar Yichud V'Amunah, which is called Sirufim, Chilufim, Tmuris, and Gematria, which basically means that of these 10 utterances, we take out a letter from over here, a letter from over here, a letter from this word and from that word, we put it together, we make a new word. That's called Sirufim. And once we do that, obviously, the light, the energy is being diluted. It's not the original word. We're taking a little piece of this word, a little piece of that word, a little piece of the energy, putting it together to create a new energy, not nearly as potent. Then we have the idea of tmuris, exchanging letters for similar letters or letters that are in a similar grouping, which we've spoken about. Then there's the idea of gematria, which is that sometimes we have the numerical value of one word becomes the numerical value of another, and that is an absolute dilution of the energy. There is very little in common between this word and that word other than the fact that they share the same numerical value. And the lowest of creations, the most simplest of creations, are created by way of gematria. And by the way, sometimes we have a combination. We can have a word that is created through a tziruf, through grabbing different letters, and then we exchange some of those letters for other letters. Then we do a gematria, and you realize just how diluted and how contracted the energy would be in the end product. Now, even the very lowest energy ultimately is divine energy. And that's why, let's take, for example, the energy which certainly comes from gematria and perhaps others also with tzirufim and chilufim and temuris, all these processes compounded and put together to create a stone. It's a very diluted energy, proof being that what is being created, an inanimate object. However, this energy, because it is divine, therefore it has the power to make an infinite amount of stones. However, each one of the stones that it creates is going to be inanimate and is going to be very limited in that which it is. So to recap where we are, we finished now chapter 7 of Shar Yichud V'Amunah. We spent a few chapters speaking about God's unity and how all of creation does not contradict the idea that Ein Od Milvado, there's nothing other than God. We spoke about the idea of Yechuda Ilah, Yechuda Tata, the two different perspectives of God's unity, higher level of unity, lower level of unity. We spoke about the idea of Tzimtzum Shalei Kipshutai, that the understanding of God's unity also leads us to understand that When Kabbalah talks about contractions, it doesn't mean it literally, because if it were to mean it literally, then there is something other than God, his knowledge of that which is going on outside of him. We moved on from there to talk about Soivav Kalalman and Mamala Kalalman, the two different types of light of God. And with this, we've concluded the topic. Creation no longer poses a challenge to God's unity. Over the next chapters of Shari Chavamuna, we are going to right now move our focus. Creation doesn't pose a challenge to God's unity. But how about God's many attributes and qualities? How can we truly say that God is one? If there's God, there's his wisdom, there's his will, there's his kindness. That will be the topic in the upcoming chapters of Shar Yichud V'Amunah.
Thank you for joining Tanya at 5. Today's lesson for the 25th of Sivan. We conclude chapter 7. Chapter 7, one word, Yehuda, is speaking about the unity of God, the higher and the lower level of unity. And now we're speaking about the tzimtzum, the contraction on the light of God, and that it is not meant in a literal way. And we're speaking about the two forces in creation. There's what we call soivev, that light of God that is all-encompassing, the equalizer that brings everything from non-being into being. And then there is the mimale, that which the light of God is contracted and fills the world and gives rise to individual created beings and distinctive creative beings. Now, we're going to understand this also in other terms of the source of the life force of creation is the breath of the mouth of God that clothes itself in the 10 utterances of the Torah. So we have the distinction here. We have the breath, and we have the utterance, the words, the letters of creation. And in speech, that's what we have. We have the utterance of saying a word, and we have the breath that comes out. Now, the breath is an equalizer, because the breath when we speak is equal in all words that we say. And if it was only the breath of his mouth that God would be creating, then the life force would be without end and limit, and would create worlds that are infinite in quantity and in quality. Being that God is infinite himself, and so are his attributes, being that his attributes are one. So from his kindness and his mercy, being that they're holy attributes, and they clothe themselves in the breath of his mouth. Similar to the way we breathe. Where does it come from? It comes from the heart to the lungs. And so the heart is in the breath, and hence that is the idea over here, that the divine attributes, they clothe themselves in the breath of God. And just as the divine attributes are one with God and therefore infinite, so therefore the breath of his mouth would create infinite worlds, both in quality and quantity. If it were not that this breath would now garb itself, would rather sort of contract the light of God, not the breath, sorry, but the other component of that we're speaking about, contracting the light and the life force in order that it should diffuse from the breath of his mouth and be invested in combinations of letters of the 10 utterances. Combinations and substitutions and transpositions of letters, and actually ultimately with the gematria, the numeric value and their equivalents themselves. Now, what does this mean? It means that the 10 utterances of God, that let there be light, let there be a rakia, a firmament in the heavens above, and water, and all these things are creations that God created that are the mainstay of everything in creation. When God created animals, he didn't create a particular creature, but the animal kingdom. Let there, when he said to be that there should be animals. But now from there, where do we get individual lesser grade of creations? Well, from a combination of letters. For example, the Alter Rebbe doesn't say this here in Tanya, but if you take Aleph from the word or, light, and you take the letter Shin from the word Shemesh, sun, and then you have the word Aish, fire. Fire is not in the 10 utterances that are in the Torah, but when you now take a combination of letters that are there, you can now make a new creative life force that now is vested in those letters, the combination, and creating the fire. And similarly in everything else. But what it's important to notice here is that this indicates a come down of the divine light, a contraction, that it's not as a great creative force or higher divine force, that it would be like in the 10 utterances in the Torah themselves, and therefore a lesser creation. Hence fire, even though it was there in creation to begin with, was only discovered later. Anyway, an aside. Now we go further. The greatest come down is not the letters themselves, where you can have again combinations, but you can have also substitutions, like atbash, like the first letter is aleph can be substituted with the last letter ataf, or the second letter beis is related to the second last letter, which is a shin, or guttural sounds like a ches and an ayin can be substituted, something that we spoke about previously. Now, when we speak about numerical value, that's even a progressive diminution of the light and the life force until it remains only on the final level of the value of the number. And a number has really, a number is a number. It doesn't have any content to it, as opposed to a letter. The letter aleph has a great meaning. The shape of the letter, the word has a meaning. In every aspect, there's a greater life force in the very letter rather than what the letter represents numerically. That's a greater come down. And we have that by way of example in the word Evan, stone. Stone is made up, the word Evan, of two, the letter Aleph, and Beis and Nun. Beis and Nun is a numeric value of 52, which is God's name that is greatly reduced, contracted his name, because it's a very high level of life force, but it's greatly reduced that now it's only its numeric value that now is the life force, together with the letter Aleph that is known to God for what reason that's there, as the Alter Rebbe says here, and that becomes the vital force to create a stone. Now this is the principle that we spoke about at the beginning in the previous class, of that God fills the world, and therefore by filling the world there is distinctive forms of creation which are all a come down, a contraction of the light of God, as opposed to that he encompasses the world which is an all-encompassing light, and that would be the breath versus the breath of God, of his mouth, versus the letter and the letter combinations and substitutions in gematria that create the various forms of life. And that is Tanya in 5. Thank you for joining.
Wow. That's some heavy duty Tanya today. I hope you guys are following. Pirkei Avot, Ethics of the Fathers, chapter 3. Ready?
Welcome back to another Pirkei Avot text explication. This is Rabbi Drew, and we are now on the 3rd chapter, the 14th text. Having the previous text being a saying of Rabbi Akiva's, we now continue with another saying of Rabbi Akiva's. Now this opens up with Hu Haya Omer, he used to say, meaning it was an expression he would frequently go around saying. This, as opposed to his previous saying, is actually a tripartite saying. It's 3 parts, which is fairly in keeping with the overall structuring, or a very common structure, of expressions of sharing of wisdom in Pirkei Avot. Here we go. So he says, beloved is Adam. Now Adam is the first person ever created. Adam, we want to call him Adam Rishon. So the first person, right? Adam. So beloved is Adam, for Adam was created in the image of God. Especially beloved is Adam, for it was made known to Adam that Adam had been created in the image of God. As it is said, for in the image of God he made man. Okay? All right. This is really distinguishing Adam, or really people, all, we want to think more broadly, people as opposed to animals. Now, animals are not made in the image of God, but people are. That's an interesting distinction. Okay. And he quotes from Genesis chapter 9. Now we continue. Now we're on to the second one. Beloved are Israel. because in that they were called children to the all-present. Especially beloved are they, for it was made known to them that they are called children of the all-present or omnipresent, as it is said, quoting from Deuteronomy chapter 14, you are children to the Lord your God. So just as we saw with the first one, we have a particular person being chosen versus all other creatures, and a verse used to support this, a biblical verse to support this. And same too here. Beloved are Israel as opposed to other nations because they were called children to the omnipresent. And once again, we have a biblical proof text. And now we have a third one. Beloved are Israel. Once again, beloved are Israel, and that a precious vessel was given to them. Especially beloved are they, for it was made known to them that the desirable instrument with which the world had been created was given to them. As it is said, quoting from Proverbs chapter 4, for I give you good instruction. Forsake not my Torah. Or ki lekach tov nasati lachem torasi al ta'azovu, which we often sing when we remove the Sefer Torah from the Ark. So this is, now, it's interesting. This one is being quoted from Proverbs as opposed to the 5 books of Moses. This is the proof text. Torah is important. Now this is something that really relates back to one of the big pieces of one of the larger themes of Pirkei Avot, which is expressing the importance of Torah and Torah study. And so that's fitting here. So it's singular. So Rabbi Akiva here in this expression and in this statement here, he's saying people are somehow more beloved than all other creatures, right? More than any other animals because they were created in God's image. The second one is the Jews were singled out for God with a special belovedness because they are the children of the omnipresent. You are children to the Lord your God, from Deuteronomy. And then finally, they got something special. They're instructed not to forsake or abandon the Torah, and so they were given the special vessel, as it were. So, some interesting wisdom here from Rabbi Akiva, and it's really, there's a certain meaning. It's also one of the fascinating things, if I could take a step back, which is also we often think about belovedness as sort of a human thing. But now what Rabbi Akiva is asserting is that people and also the children of Israel have a certain relationship with God and have a certain belovedness to God, which is really interesting. So that's something that Rabbi Akiva thought, something he believed in, and something he espoused. So thank you so much for watching.
All right. And that takes us to, waiting for the computer, Sefer HaMitzvos of the Rambam.
No, it's not impossible that
Here we go. Baruch Hashem, it is day number 53 of Rambam Sefer HaMitzvos. And in the 3 chapters a day of Mishnah Torah, we are finishing the laws that we've been learning the past few days, laws related to Yom Tov. We're still in the book of Zmanim, the book of times of festivals and different observances that are related to different dates around the year. But what's happening is we're finishing Hilchos Shvisas Yom Tov with chapters 7 and 8 of those laws, and we're starting Hilchos Chometz and Matzah, the laws about leaven and matzah on, obviously, on Pesach. And you see why that's related to Yom Tov, because Pesach is a Yom Tov, it's a holiday. So let's do the corresponding mitzvahs. And you'll see how we have some mitzvahs that correspond clearly to the laws of resting on Yom Tov and Yom Tov observance. And then we start mitzvahs today which correspond to the laws of Chometz and Matzah. Okay, positive commandment 166, resting on the first day of Sukkot. And as I mentioned regarding Pesach, I might have forgotten to mention it yesterday regarding Shavuos, but self-understood. I hope it's self-understood that is 2 days outside of the land of Israel. So, yes, resting on the first day of Sukkot means resting for 2 days, the first 2 days. Negative commandment 327, is, you guessed it, the prohibition against doing creative labor on the first day of Sukkot, right? So the positive commandment to rest, the negative prohibition against doing labor. All right, positive commandment 167, resting on Shmini Atzeres. Shmini Atzeres is the 8th day of Sukkot, and it is a Yom Tif unto itself. What are the ramifications of that? We won't really get into it here, but just because it's a fun fact and people often ask about it. In contrast with Shvi Shel Pesach, where you don't make a Shechianu because it's not a new Yom Tif, it's a continuation of the Yom Tif that began on the first night of Pesach. Shmini Atzeres is its own Yom Tif, and therefore you do make Shechianu. I'm talking about in Kiddush and in lighting the candles. You make the Shechianu Bracha. Okay, so anyways, positive commandment 167 is to rest on Shmini Atzeres. And yes, you guessed it, in the lands outside of Eretz Yisrael, that's 2 days. And you know what we call the second day of Shmini Atzeres? We call it, we're going to say Chi Atzeres. That's a good guess. That would be the 9th. But no, that's not what I've never heard it called that. The second day of Shmini Atzeres is called Simchas Torah. At least the observance of dancing with the Torah that we do on the second day of Shmini Atzeres is called Simchas Torah. But most people just refer to the whole day as Simchas Torah. Okay, that's positive commandment 167, to rest on Shmini Atzeres. Negative commandment 328, yeah, you guessed it. It's the flip side of positive 167. Negative commandment 328 is the prohibition against doing labor on Shmini Atzeres. Okay, and that finishes the mitzvahs that correspond to the laws of Yom Tif. And now we're going to do one mitzvah that corresponds to the laws of Chametz u Matzah. Chametz u Matzah. Ring a bell? A little nostalgia trigger right there. Okay, negative commandment 199. The prohibition against eating chametz after noon, after the noon, the time of noon, on the 14th day of the month of Nisan. Pesach starts the evening of the 15th. The prohibition against eating chametz begins noon of the day leading into that. Why is that? Because the Pesach sacrifice, which we have not learned about yet, but the Pesach sacrifice can be offered starting at that time. And based on ways of extrapolating the law, we learn that one should not perform the Pesach sacrifice while chametz is extant. So remember the mitzvah we learned about resting and not doing labor on Pesach? That doesn't start until the evening when Pesach actually starts. But the prohibition against chametz begins noon of the day going into it. And by the way, just for the sake of practical halacha, you should know rabbinically, it's more strict than that even. The rabbis forbade chametz an hour before noon in order to make a fence around the Torah so that one would not come to stumble, God forbid. Okay, so those are today's mitzvahs, and we're going to continue tomorrow with more chametz and matzah related mitzvahs, God willing.
Today we study the final mitzvahs related to not working on the holidays. We got positive mitzvah number 166, the mitzvah to refrain from work on the first day of Sukkot, and negative mitzvah number 327, not to work on the first day of Sukkot. We got positive mitzvah number 167, not to work on the 8th day of Sukkot, also known as Shmini Atzeret, as well as negative mitzvah number 328, the prohibition not to work on Shmini Atzeret. We also segue now to the specific mitzvahs related to each of the holidays, and we begin with Passover. Negative mitzvah number 199 is the special prohibition that on the eve of Passover, from midday and on, we are not to eat any chametz.
All right, and that brings us to matters of Moshiach. 1 second. Here we go. Mashiach needs to be understood and explained in a way that people will accept. While other mitzvahs or aspects of Torah can be fulfilled based on faith or authority, this is not the case with the Geula, the redemption. Only through personal change can we emphatically desire the redemption and make the changes necessary to begin the process. Therefore, we must make extra effort when studying and teaching the topic of Mashiach so we can understand and internalize what we learn. Watch this. It's coming.
True leadership shines when ambitions are set aside and we can prioritize the dignity of those under our care. In this week's Torah portion, the Rebbe teaches us that Moshe and Aharon didn't ask God about the Jewish people celebrating Passover in the desert for 39 years because they didn't want to embarrass the Jewish people by stating the obvious, that they had forgotten to ask. Some people think the Rebbe told us to add in acts of goodness and kindness to bring Mashiach because he couldn't do it alone. The truth is that it would have been an embarrassment for us if we didn't take part in asking Hashem and wanting Mashiach now. While it may sometimes feel good to state the obvious or point out someone's mistakes, silence is valuable and love for others is greater than the temporary satisfaction we get from validating ourselves or putting others down. Good Shabbos and Shabbat Shalom.
All right, and that takes us to our PSAs. Mafia Soup Kitchen, Food Pantry, available. It's tomcheishabbos.org. In Lakewood, it's tomche.org. Chicago, breakfastwitheli.live/Chicago Soup Kitchen, Chicago Food Bank, rather. And breakfastwitheli.live/Soup Kitchens if you'd like the complete list. All right. Give me 1 second over here. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. All right. Yeah, that's it. Just got to take care of a little itsy bitsy detail over here. All right. I'm sorry. Achiezer.org. Achiezer is there to help you with all manner of things. It's a pretty amazing organization. Call them today and find out what they can do for you. Hatzalah. Hatzalah.org is available 24/7, 365 worldwide. If you'd like to know more about Hatzalah and what they can do, get their Global Assist app, which is available on the iOS store and the Android store, and it's free. Miss Oskim.org. In times of bereavement, they can help you out with absolutely everything that you need. And Just One Shabbos is there to help bring our youth back to the beauty of keeping Shabbat. It is a very, very, very important mitzvah. All right? If you are, God forbid, crime in progress, you should call 911 immediately. All right? Don't wait. Don't wait. It's very important. All right? Do it, do it, do it, do it, do it. All right? And go out, and when you're out and about, please be wearing a mask. All right?
Mask, wear a mask. Is this really much to ask? Tie some fabric
Wear a
around your
mask,
face.
get your vaccinations, get your booster shots, and with that, we will bring heaven in. There you go. All right. coffee. All right. Both religion and philosophy have allotted human beings a passive role in the world's destiny. The Creator had made a beautiful world. We messed it up. It was for Hashem to judge, reward, punish, and take care of our mess. And now that was reversed. The Creator was the one who had handed us a mess so we could complete the job of perfecting it from within. It's a good world, a very good world, essentially because we are empowered to make it good. Effectively, the Ari gave center stage to the actions of human beings. The idea of tikkun seeped rapidly into every facet of Jewish thought and affected every Jewish movement, directly or indirectly. We no longer saw ourselves as passive instruments and servants of Hashem's judgment, but as active players, whose redemption and the redemption of the entire world, indeed the entire cosmos, lay in our hands. Every mitzvah we did gained new meaning. Every prayer, every word of Torah study, now not just good for a deed to be rewarded, but another step towards the ultimate Geulah, redemption of the entire world. The Ari HaKodesh was a halachist, an expert, an authority in Jewish law, and he saw all of Jewish practice as a crystallization of Kabbalah, tikkun in action. We'll continue this thought tomorrow, God willing. Meanwhile, if you want to talk to me, come to me on social media, any of the Actors Rabbis groups, at Clubhouse, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Telegram, Twitter, WhatsApp, or at theactorsrabbi.com, where you can sign up for life coaching services. And now let's make an after bracha.
Baruch ato Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam boirei nefashos rabos v'chesronan al kol ma sheborasa lachayos bohem nefesh kol chai baruch chai ha'olamim.
All right. Thank you so much for being here. You have no idea what it means to me. My Patreon sponsor, Casper Riddle, card lady, Biederman. If you would like to become a sponsor like them, go to patreon.com/actorsrabbi or breakfastwelly.live/tipjar and contribute today. All right, a little bit louder. 8th Day featuring Nissim Black. That's right. 8th Day with Nissim Black has a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful new video for you. All right. It is Wednesday. It's Hump Day. Middle of the week, tilted towards Shabbos. That's right. Shabbos is around the corner. Go out and do something nice, something good for someone today. In the words of Rabbi Isaac Cobbler, have affection for a fellow. Hashem will have affection for you. Do a kindness for a fellow. Hashem will do a kindness for you. Draw a fellow close. Hashem will draw you close to him. See you tomorrow. Make it a great and glorious day. Be the reason someone smiles. A little louder. Bye. Here we go. You know it's coming.
Yeah. Live a little louder. Take it up. 8th Day, Nissim Black.
When my head is feeling heavy and my steps are out of sync, when my feet can't find their rhythm and I don't know what to think, simple words have lost their meaning and my broken heart can't beat. It's in these silent moments I feel you next to me, saying, face the challenge, stare it down, take the plunge, feet off the ground, breathing deep till again your head's above water, knowing anchor can hold you down. Say it with me now again. Live your one life mit dabren. And when your silent faith begins to fade, live a little louder, a little louder, a little louder, live a little louder. Crashing of the ocean, the falling of the rain, laughter traveling in the breeze from children as they play, the harmonies that fall between the notes we cannot hear, the sound of life surrounding you are signs that he is near. So face the challenge, stare it down, take the plunge, feet off the ground, breathing deep till again your head's above water. No anchor can hold you down. Say it with me now again. Live your one life mit dabren. When your silent faith begins to fade, live a little louder, live a little louder.
Yeah, I just wanna live a life of goodness, goodwill, God heals. Every type of suffering, that's how I fell in love with him. Seen a lot of pain in life, I am still recovering. I'm giving all I have to give, I finish when there's nothing there. I live life with the fire burning in my chest. I'm drawing down the light a little, make it louder, we progress. True joy is revealed or concealed in the actions you're making. You should learn patience, live life every day with a smile and good energy, because it's a way to victory.
Face the challenge, stare it down, take the plunge, feet off the ground, breathing deep till again your head's above water. No anchor can hold you down. Say it with me now again. Live your one life mit dabren. When your silent faith begins to fade, face the challenge, stare it down, take the plunge, feet off the ground, breathing deep